It is 10:47 on a Tuesday night. You are in bed. The room is dark except for the light of your phone, and somewhere between scrolling and almost sleeping, your thumb finds the buy button. You don't remember deciding, you just did it. The package arrives 4 days later. You open it, and for a few seconds you stare at whatever is inside, trying to remember why you wanted it. Sometimes you remember, sometimes you don't. Your brain was hijacked, not metaphorically. Literally. The platform you were scrolling had been engineered by a team of behavioral scientists and data engineers to get your thumb moving before your prefrontal cortex could form a coherent objection. The dopamine loop did exactly what it was designed to do, but here's what that team of engineers did not count on. You can hard-code a delay into the system. You can weaponize friction right back at the machine. The 48-hour friction rule is exactly that. A mandatory cooling period built into your digital life that forces every impulse purchase to survive 48 hours of sober-minded reconsideration. This video will show you how to build it, how to extend it to the corners of your spending life that bleed money in silence, and how to step into a completely different identity on the other side of it. Carol is a 54-year-old dental hygienist from Columbus, Ohio. She has been careful with money her entire adult life. She raised 2 children on a modest income, drives a 6-year-old sedan, packs her lunch on most days, and has a retirement account she adds to every month without fail. By any reasonable measure, Carol is financially disciplined, so she couldn't explain the box. It had arrived on a Thursday morning, a $37 makeup palette she did not recall ordering, bundled with a $44 face serum she had apparently added to the cart during the same session. She stood in her kitchen looking at the packing slip and felt a specific kind of confusion that had nothing to do with the products. She was confused by herself. "I don't even use face serum," she told her daughter that evening. "I clicked on something and then I clicked on something else and then apparently I bought things." Carol is not careless. Carol is not frivolous. Carol's brain simply did what human brains have been doing since the first bright object caught their attention across a dark field. It responded to a stimulus before the rest of her caught up. In the 1990s, a neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz conducted a series of experiments that changed how scientists understood the brain's reward system. He was studying dopamine in primates, and he expected to find that dopamine surged after a reward arrived. What he found instead was that dopamine surged in anticipation of a reward, in the moment before the reward, and that the brain began tracking the signal that predicted the reward rather than the reward itself. Schultz published his foundational work on this in 1997, and it has been confirmed and extended across hundreds of subsequent studies. What this means practically is this: the pleasure is not in the having, the pleasure is in the expecting. The moment Carol clicked Add to Cart, her nucleus accumbens released dopamine, not when the box arrived, not when she opened it, when she clicked. The anticipation was the reward, and the purchase itself was almost beside the point. The psychologist Daniel Kahneman spent decades studying the 2 operating systems of the human mind. He called them System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, automatic, and emotional. It identifies a face in a crowd, pulls your hand back from a hot stove, and processes a marketing image in the time it takes to blink. System 2 is slow, deliberate, and logical. It is the part of your mind that balances a checkbook or reads a contract. The problem is that System 2 requires effort. It gets tired. And at 10:47 on a Tuesday night, after a full day of work, System 1 is running the show. E-commerce platforms know this. They are not guessing. They are operating from behavioral data sets that contain hundreds of millions of decision points, and every element of the interface has been tested and refined to minimize the gap between your desire and your purchase. The countdown timer that tells you the sale ends in 11 minutes. The social proof banner showing that 23 people are looking at this item right now. The single-click checkout that removes every moment of friction that might give System 2 time to raise its hand. These are not accidents of design. A 2019 study from Princeton University cataloged these strategies systematically and named them dark patterns. User interface choices that are deliberately designed to steer behavior in the direction that benefits the platform. Not you. The dopamine loop, once engaged, is self-reinforcing. Schultz's subsequent work showed that dopamine release is highest not when rewards are guaranteed, but when they are unpredictable. A 50-50 chance of a reward produces twice the dopamine of a certain reward. This is the same mechanism behind slot machines, and it is the same mechanism behind the scroll. You don't know which item will excite you. That uncertainty amplifies the neurochemical drive to keep scrolling. And somewhere in that scroll, Carol's thumb found the buy button. Here's what the scroll is costing you in concrete terms. According to data compiled by Capital One Shopping, the average American consumer spent approximately $282 per month on impulse purchases in 2024. That is $381 over the course of a single year. Over a working lifetime of 30 years, that is more than $100,000. And that figure does not account for what that money could have grown into if it had been invested instead. And that is only the purchases you remember making. The purchases you do not remember are a separate category entirely. Research by C+R Research found that the average American spends around $219 per month on subscription services. But when asked to estimate that figure off the top of their head, people guessed an average of $86. The gap between what people think they spend and what they actually spend is $133 every single month. 42% of consumers in the same study admitted they were still being charged for at least one subscription they had forgotten about entirely. These are not the spending habits of people who don't care about money. These are the spending habits of people whose environment has been optimized against their intentions. The auto-pay checkbox, the free trial that converts silently to a paid subscription, the in-app purchase that costs $2.99 and feels too small to think about, every one of these is a friction removal mechanism. And the cumulative effect of removing friction from the spending side of your life without removing anything on the saving side is a slow and steady drain that most people don't see until they look at a credit card statement under a kitchen light. Bankrate reported that among Americans who made impulse purchases based on what they saw on social media, 57% regretted at least one of those purchases. The purchase brought a brief surge of anticipatory dopamine. The regret came later when the dopamine had cleared and System 2 was finally awake. That regret is data. It is your sober mind telling you what your wired mind already spent. The solution is not willpower. If willpower were sufficient, the problem would not exist at scale. Willpower is a System 2 resource and it depletes with use. The same research that demonstrated decision fatigue also demonstrated that the quality of decisions declines as the day goes on and the mental energy required for deliberate reasoning runs low. You cannot consistently outthink a dopamine loop at 11 o'clock at night with a depleted System 2. What you can do is build an environmental structure that makes the impulsive purchase physically inconvenient. The 48-hour friction rule works like this. When you encounter something you want to buy online, you do not buy it. You save it to a list, a wish list, a note in your phone, a document on your desktop, whatever form works for you, and you do nothing else. 48 hours later, you return to the list and you ask yourself a single question: do I still want this? Not did I want this when I found it, but do I want this now in daylight without the platform in front of me with my full cognitive capacity available? In most cases, the answer changes. The rule works because it disconnects the stimulus from the purchase decision and inserts time between them. The dopamine that flooded your nucleus accumbens when you found the item has dissipated. The urgency cues, the countdown timer, the only 3 left banner, they no longer apply because you are not in the platform. You are reading a list, and reading a list is a System 2 activity. It is slow, deliberate, and capable of noticing that you already own 3 similar items, that your budget does not have room for this right now, or that the reason you wanted it at 10:47 Tuesday was that you were tired and the scroll had been running for 40 minutes. The implementation requires 2 things, a capture system and a confirmation step. The capture system is where items go when you feel the impulse. It should be frictionless to add to because if adding to the list is inconvenient, you will skip it. A wish list in whatever platform you use, a note in your phone, a shared document you can reach in 2 taps. The format is irrelevant. The function is to interrupt the purchase and create an exit ramp. The confirmation step happens at the 48-hour mark. This is not a passive review. You open the list, read each item, and for each one you make a deliberate decision, yes or no, not maybe later. Yes or no, the items that survive that review, the ones your sober morning mind still genuinely wants after 2 days of distance, those are the items worth buying. The rest were the dopamine loop, and the dopamine loop, once it no longer leads to a purchase, begins to lose its grip. Some people find it useful to add a second layer. Along with the item, they write down why they wanted it at the moment they found it, now a justification, a diagnosis. Saw it while stressed after work. It was on sale and I felt I was getting a deal. The influencer made it look essential. When you return 48 hours later and read that note, you often find that the reason no longer applies or that it was never a real reason at all. The 48-hour rule handles the purchases you can see. But there is a second category of spending that requires a different kind of attention because it operates almost entirely below the level of conscious decision-making. Subscription services are the spending most likely to slip past your defenses because they were designed to. The free trial converts automatically. The annual renewal charges while you are thinking about something else. The platform that took 3 clicks to join takes 12 steps to leave. A study cited in a 2024 paper by economists at Stanford University and Texas A&M used credit card data to analyze what happens when a subscriber's payment card expires. Merchants saw revenue increases of between 14% and 200% compared to the baseline where customers actively managed their agreements. The gap between those two numbers is inertia. It is your money being extracted because you did not take a specific action to stop it. Apply the 48-hour rule to subscriptions with one modification. For any new subscription, the rule extends to 7 days. You do not subscribe today. You add it to your list, write down what you expect to use it for and how often, and you wait a week. In most cases, the urgency that made the subscription feel necessary fades within 48 hours, let alone 7 days. For existing subscriptions, do a quarterly audit. Every 3 months, look at every recurring charge on your bank and credit card statements and ask the same question you ask about items on the wish list. Do I still want this? Not did I want this when I signed up. Do I want this now at this price for the actual use I am getting from it? Digital microtransactions deserve the same scrutiny. In-app purchases, premium filters, one-time upgrades. They are priced below the threshold that triggers deliberate consideration. A purchase that costs $2.99 feels too small to think about, but $100.99 purchases across a year is $299 you never consciously chose to spend. Apply the rule to these as well. Nothing is exempt because the amount is small. The rule is about the habit of deliberate choice, not the magnitude of individual transactions. The deeper shift is an identity shift. The person who buys from the wish list after 48 hours of reflection is not the same person who clicks at 10:47 in the dark. The first person is a reactive consumer, responding to engineered stimuli, moving through a shopping environment that was built to extract spending. The second person is something different. Call them a deliberate curator. A person who decides what enters their physical and digital life based on their own criteria, considered in their own time without the assistance of a countdown timer. The difference between those two identities is not one of willpower or discipline, it is one of structure. One identity lives inside the platform's architecture. The other has built their own. Carol made that shift, not all at once. She started with a note in her phone called Things I Almost Bought. The first week she added 7 items and bought 0. The second week she added 4 and bought 1. By the third month the list had shrunk to 2 or 3 items a week, and when she bought something from it she felt, as she later put it, like I actually meant to do it. That feeling, the feeling of intentional acquisition, is what the deliberate curator has that the reactive consumer does not. It is agency, and you can build it this evening. Carol still has that makeup palette. She tried the serum, decided it was fine, and finished the bottle. She doesn't regret the items themselves particularly. What she regrets is the moment she wasn't there for her own decision, the moment her thumb moved and she wasn't paying attention. That moment is what the 48-hour friction rule is designed to eliminate, not purchases, absent decisions. The rule doesn't take anything away from you that you actually wanted. It only removes the purchases that happened before you could decide whether you wanted them. Wolfram Schultz's research on dopamine anticipation was not a condemnation of the brain's reward system. The brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do, responding to signals that predict reward and driving behavior toward acquisition. The problem is that the signal system has been hijacked by a trillion-dollar industry with access to behavioral data that your ancestors could not have imagined. The 48-hour rule is not fighting your brain. It is giving your brain the time it needs to do the job it is actually good at, deliberate evaluation. System 1 finds the item. The 48 hours gives System 2 a turn. The average American spends $381 every year on impulse purchases. That number is not describing careless people. It is describing the default outcome when human neuroscience meets engineered digital environments without any structural intervention. The 48-hour friction rule is that intervention. Simple to implement, immediately effective, and cumulative in its impact on both your finances and the identity you are building as someone who decides what enters their life. Start tonight. Before you close this video, open a note on your phone. Title it whatever you want. That note is your wish list. The next time you feel the urge to buy something online, add it to the note instead of the cart. 48 hours later, look at it. See what your sober mind says. What survives that process is yours. What doesn't was the platform's. Here's what I need you to do right now. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications every week. This channel puts out research-backed strategies for building financial clarity in a world that is working hard to prevent it. The people who stay are the ones who are serious about the gap between where they are and where they want to be. That is who this channel is for. And leave a comment below telling me what you are adding to your list tonight. The first item on your wish list is a commitment. Make it here.